YouTube, what is good? Peace and blessings to you guys. It is your Lord and Savior, TGod Nirel. My name is Nirel, and this is my YouTube channel dedicated to my transition and not everything trans. My perspective of everything trans. Anyways, you guys, so I decided that I would like to make a video talking about how a lot of well, I guess you can say trans people in general, but a lot of people who transition medically. And for those of you who don't know, that not going to get into specifics because this is not what I'm trying to do. I specifically just want to talk about people who medically transition, people who get surgeries and who take hormones. That is what I mean by medically transitioning. No, I'm not going to have a debate about why that is a specific term or anything like that. I don't particularly care. Well, I mean, I give a fuck, but yeah, I need to not give a fuck. Anyways, I would like to talk about trauma and testosterone. And the reason why I would like to okay, yeah. So, sorry about that. My alarm went off. I would like to talk about trauma and testosterone. And the reason why I want to talk to you guys about trauma and testosterone is because I remember when I first transitioned, I was having a lot of emotional related issues, and a lot of people figured because I was taking my hormone replacement therapy includes taking testosterone, and it was like a lot of my moods, a lot of my anger or rage, things that were already persistent, that were already bothering me. I guess a lot of people caught on more after I started taking testosterone. And one thing that I do remember that was frequently relayed back to me back to 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 back was actually the fact that testosterone is technically a steroid. If you ever heard of roid rage, you could possibly get this while you're taking testosterone. And yes, I know that they're saying possibly, but there's also a stigma that's being tied into hormone replacement therapy, and like when it comes to trans women and them being on their spironolactone, I believe is the testosterone blocker. And when they take estrogen, they might seem a little bit more moody than what they were before. But my whole thing is, I think that we are looking at hormone replacement therapy and emotional instability the wrong way. Took some notes. Y'all know me and my note taking. So I took some notes, and there is a slight altering change in emotions when dealing with changing your primary hormone or your primary gender hormone. What is that little gland called? I forgot what it's called. The little gland that controls like your pituitary gland. Yes, your pituitary gland is the gland that actually controls like your hormone releases the control of testosterone and estrogen. Everybody has both testosterone and estrogen flowing through them. Those are natural energies that everyone has. But I would like to call this video Trauma and Testosterone. Because my thing is, and I've been like on a whole mental health journey for a minute now. But it's just that the fact that I'm now actually starting to see the results of the work that I have done, and I'm quite frankly proud of myself. Note, I started a podcast, and I want all of you guys to follow my podcast on Instagram. Check out the website at igs2s.com. You can also follow me on Instagram at igs2spod. Also have a Facebook page called I Got Something to Say. You can go like and follow over there if you guys want to stay abreast with the podcast. I also have a YouTube channel dedicated to visual podcasting videos. Like I said, I have a website, so the ultimate goal is to get the website up and running and just say, fuck all these other platforms. But anyways, so check out my podcast, check out my podcast, check out my podcast. Thank you. But one thing I am going to be touching on in the first few videos of my podcast is my personal trauma and my perspective on life and why I probably have the perspective that I do. But anyways, so I define trauma using two dictionaries. Merriam-Webster's dictionary and the American Psychological Association's dictionary. The reason why I chose these two is because Merriam-Webster is the standard dictionary for North American English, and the American Psychological Association is the American Psychological Association. If you're going to be talking about trauma and how things affect the brain, why would you not fucking check out the APA? You know, that... But anyways, so trauma is defined by Merriam-Webster as there are two definitions with trauma, and the first one has 3 sections, but we're going to get into that. 1A, an injury such as a wound to living tissue caused by an extrinsic agent. 1B, a disordered psyche or behavioral state resulting from severe mental or emotional stress or physical injury. 1C, an emotional injury. Definition 2, an agent, force, or mechanism that causes trauma. And the little on the webpage for Merriam-Webster, they have a did you know section. Trauma is the Greek word for wound. Used for, so at the time the Greeks only used it for physical injuries. Today, trauma is used to refer, the word trauma is used to refer to emotional wounds. A traumatic event can leave psychological symptoms long after injuries have healed. Psychological reaction to emotional trauma now has an established name called post-traumatic stress disorder. But apparently, with your cluster... So, when you look at the DSM-5, the Diagnostic Manual and Statistics, that is what therapists and psychiatrists and will use. Those are different diagnostic criteria for personality disorders and other mental illnesses and anything else that one would possibly be diagnosed with. Neurological disorders, psychological disorders, all those shit gets kind of tied into mental health. Although there is a difference between a psychological disorder and a neurological disorder, I want to say that. So back into the DSM-5. There are different subcategories for different mental illnesses. They're broken down into categories. And there's cluster B, and that's usually the cluster B section is deemed, or they're described to be as the extremely emotional and not that they lack self-control, but they're extremely emotional and I forgot it. Anyways, your cluster B's would be your borderlines, your histrionics, your narcissists, your sociopaths, and your psychopaths. All those, in my opinion, although I'm not a therapist, in my opinion, These are just different levels, and like histrionic would be like the least, and then borderline, and then narcissism, and then sociopathy, and then psychopathy. And sociopathy and psychopathy are technically the same thing. You have psychopathy stage 1, you have psychopathy stage 2. Psychopathy stage 1 would be your run-of-the-mill typical sociopath. They are like, they have psychopathy. They're just a little more well contained. They tend to be extremely organized. Yeah. But anyways, so make a long story short, psychopathy is described as end-stage narcissism. And a lot of these traits in the cluster B things are extremely comorbid. So you might not just be dealing with someone who has borderline personality disorder. You might not just be dealing with someone who has narcissism, or who's a pathological narcissist. You might not be dealing with someone who is pathologically a sociopath, or pathologically like a lot of these things can be intertwined. Hell, I know I dated a bipolar schizophrenic when I was in the 9th grade. Child, my parents told me not to do that shit, and bro. Anyways, so all those, the cluster B, they're trying to now just put it all into one term, which would be complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So instead of it being PTSD, it would now be CPTSD. PTSD occurs after extremely stressful events, and symptoms can include depression, anxiety, flashbacks, and recurring nightmares. Now, the American Psychological Association described trauma with 2 definitions as well. And definition number 1 is any disturbing experience that results in significant fear, helplessness, disassociation, confusion, or other disruptive feelings. Intense enough to have a long-lasting negative effect on a person's attitude, behavior, and other aspects of functioning. Traumatic events include those caused by human behavior, as well as nature, and often challenges an individual's view of the world as just, safe, and predictable place. Definition number 2. Any serious physical injury, such as a widespread burn or a blow to the head. A psychopathy is... There's 2 ways you can become a psychopath. And psychopath, sociopath, I'm using both of these interchangeably. There's 2 ways. Either A, you're born with it, and that is usually your amygdala, which is a gland that controls your emotions and your levels of empathy or whatever inside your brain, is either damaged or just does not work at all. Or the other way is technically 3. Well, 2, you can get hit in the head and your amygdala can be damaged that way. Those are typically be the ones with the seriously traumatic brain injuries, like blood coming out the head type of thing. And as someone who lived with a sociopath for about 7 months, I did not have fun. I mean, I wasn't scared or anything because apparently I'm used to the bullshit. Apparently, which is why y'all go check out my fucking podcast. Go check out my podcast. I wouldn't recommend it. extremely exhausting energetically. Well, for me, it was exhausting energetically. They always try to put you down, like make you feel lower about yourself. Like, I ain't gonna say motherfuckers hate happiness. Motherfuckers just don't want to see you happy, and they're not happy. But then again, when are they ever happy? Because psychopathy, its etymology, the history of the word, it means mind sufferer. So they're suffering pathologically. They're suffering pathologically, and they're extremely, extremely fucking miserable. But the problem is they don't want to acknowledge the fact that they're miserable because they think that vulnerability is a weakness. So, anyways, back to trauma and testosterone. I remember I first took my testosterone shot on July 23rd, 2018. And around that time, I had just gotten out from living paycheck to paycheck. And I mean paycheck to paycheck, meaning I make $13,000. I make $1,300 on a paycheck and gotta go spend that shit right then and there on some bills just to keep going, just to keep a roof over my head. Or it was a time period when I didn't eat for like a month and a half. I was struggling financially, residentially, academically, family. I was suffering. I was fucking miserable. You know, I was fucking miserable. And I remember a lot of times, like a lot of the things would be blown off as if, oh, that's just the testosterone. Or one thing I remember triggering me is like, of course, like my parents don't like the whole trans thing, but my dad tried to play my depression on me taking testosterone. And if anything, my depression is based on my environment. To a certain extent, I guess you can say I have seasonal depression. But I don't have a chemical balance because I'm not depressed all day, every day. That is not my main functioning. I never had a problem with being vulnerable. Once I attempted being vulnerable with different outlets and stuff in school, then that's when everything got better for me. But one thing I really want to make the point of this video is I feel as if we should stop focusing on the hormone replacement therapy. And start focusing more on the trauma. And I'm not trying to shit on anybody. I'm not trying to say, oh, I'm better than you, or people who are like this are better than people who are like that. Because no way am I ever trying to say that. I feel as if a lot of things within the trans community would be sorted out and fixed if a lot of people just focus on trauma. And that's with any community. Specifically, but like I was at work, and we have an employee who is transitioning from male to female, and I overheard a comment because I'm stealth. Like a lot of people, like I overheard a comment. Because apparently, like, she's been, like, having, like, little bursts and, like, outbursts and whatever. And I heard a comment from someone. Like, right there, like, ooh. Oh, yikes. So apparently, her and one of the former managers or something, or one of the customers at the, whatever, had, like, a slight little blow up or whatever. And not saying that the trans woman isn't wrong. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is the comment that was made was, "Oh, it's probably that the damn pill she taking." I'm like, ooh, ignorant. See, this is why you gotta be careful with who you open up to, and because a lot of people out here, it's a lot of fucking miserable people. Like, I've been doing my self work, and my thing is, how do you not be focused? If you once you know you're miserable, bro. Once you know you're miserable, what makes y'all be like, I'm not gonna do anything to try to get myself out of this situation? It is insane how my mentality has changed and how it has changed like so quickly, and I love it, and I'm gonna keep going. But I would like to say this, especially to the trans. You know what? I'll group you trans women in here too. Because both groups need to be addressed. Trans men, please take care of your traumas. Right? On the outside looking in, society views you as a man because they see you as a biological man, because most of everything's assumption is based on perception and just what we see out of our sight and appearance. That's human nature. On another note, there's a lot of trans men out here, and me included. Have had to take care of some of our traumas too. Technically, I'm trying to take care of all of them, but I've really worked through my parental shit. And then now I think I'm trying to work on like the relationship aspect and how I view people, and not everybody out here is trying to like harm me, or not everybody out here is trying to use me, or anything like that. There's also a lot of trans men who have sexual traumas, and I want to say this to the trans men: it's specifically important for us to take care of our traumas. Although not every trans man wants to live a life of a traditional male, I understand that, and everything is to each is their own. Yet on another hand, a lot of us do want to play that role, and I will say that for those that do want to play that role, how the fuck can you be head of household and you're broken? How the fuck can you be the head of household if you're selfish? How the fuck can you love, protect, and provide if you're broken? And there's absolutely nothing wrong with being broken if you're trying to get fixed. Now, if you're broken and you just cool with being broken, then of course there's a problem with that. Now, with the trans women, I'm gonna tread lightly when I speak on y'all shit, cause no beef. This is from an outsider looking in. I can only view you from the outside, and please do not be offended by one of the things that I'm about to say. A lot of y'all have a lot deep-seated trauma, because you feel as if, or you might feel as if, you've always been on an outcast. Maybe as when you were living as the gender that you were identified at birth. Maybe you were probably on the feminine side. Maybe. Not all trans women were. And then I understand now with transitioning how a lot of trans women have a harder time transitioning physically. I get that, and I understand that. And then that presents and puts a wall up. And even with trans men, this happens too. A lot of transitioning does not go as a lot of people would hope for it to go. Okay, I'm probably rambling. Anyways, make a long story short, make this video short so I can go ahead and tie it up. Stop focusing on the hormones. Stop focusing on the mood swings, and focus on the trauma. Focus on what you're running away from, because that right there is like the biggest assistance. That right there is going to be the biggest need that each and every one of us have. But Thanks for tuning in. My name is Nirel. I am TGod Nirel, your personal trans lord and savior. Thanks for hanging out with me. Hope I didn't ramble too much, but peace and blessings to you. Deuces.